It's a new dawn, a new day for KBLA Talk 1580, and we're glad you're on this journey with us.
You never turn away, you were right there. And I thank you, thank you.
Shine, flies, no time to waste while it's passing you by. Shine, flies, be patient, 'cause good things happen in time. We gon' get it right, we gon' get it right, we gon' get it right. We gon' get it right.
Protests and anthems, yes, we chanting. A movement of people, it's like we dancing to the ministry of. It's the energy of, in memory of them that we love. The trinity of the people, the peace, the power, the truth. We speak the powers even louder. We can say it blacker, we can say it prouder. A woman vice president that went to Howard. Now we talk helping black businesses, and our differences is magnificent. Bringing light to the point where the prisons is. I was told good life is where forgiveness lives. The ascension is to leave what's left behind and feed the seeds with deeds that bless the mind, caress the mind, and question justify with you and God in time my best align.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai, your host and White House correspondent in LA, live in LA, holding it down with you in afternoon drive time. I'm in touch, and so you be in touch. Follow me on all the social media platforms at Dr. Nii-Quartelai. All you got to do is type in Dr. Nii-Q, DRNIIQ. There you have it. There I am, fresh for you to follow. Also, be sure to download the KBLA app to listen to us live or on demand, or just tell Alexa to play KBLA Talk 1580. It's just that simple. Last but not least, subscribe to A More Perfect Union podcast. That way you'll never miss an episode. And with that, it's time for your national news roundup. It's time for you to decide the good, bad, and ugly headlines of the day. If you're tracking your credit report closely, you may want to lean in on this one. A rule lifting medical debt from credit scores was voided. What will that change? Well, the Washington Post is reporting an estimated one-fifth of U.S. households have medical debt on their credit reports, a burden that makes it more expensive for them to buy homes or finance new cars, and in some cases, more difficult to obtain a job. A recent court decision has now kept that system in place. That's right, a Biden-era rule announced just last summer, but never put into effect, sought to forbid credit reporting agencies, including Equifax, Experian, TransUnion, you know who I'm talking about. It sought to forbid these credit reporting agencies from using medical debt over $500 on the detailed credit history reports that lenders use to judge creditworthiness. Well, amid opposition from the industry groups, no surprise there, and the Trump administration, guess what? A federal judge has struck down the rule. They struck it down just this month. Now, you might be wondering, as a consumer, what should you know moving forward? Well, you should check out this Washington Post article, really dig into all of those things, including why was the medical debt rule overturned, what happens next if you carry medical debt, how many people are affected, how medical debt affects your credit score, and how you can improve your credit score. And so check out that article brought to you by the Washington Post to dig into those questions. But know that medical debt will now impact your credit scores. The Biden-Harris administration did everything they could to keep that from happening, but industry groups and the Trump administration thought otherwise. Another consequence of the election. Moving along, the hubbub. Have you seen all the hubbub about Laverne Cox The Griot reporting that Laverne Cox addresses controversy over revelation that her ex was a MAGA Trump supporting cop. That's right. Laverne Cox has had social media users doing a double take this week when she revealed these shocking details about her dating history in a video posted on Instagram and TikTok. In the video, Laverne Cox opened up about a romantic experience that even took her by surprise, saying, quotes, "My ex-boyfriend, when we met 5 years ago at the height of the pandemic, he was 26 and I was 48. He was a blonde-haired, blue-eyed MAGA Republican voter who is a New York City police officer." Now, while Cox shared that the two kept their political views out of the relationship, social media users immediately raised their eyebrow at the actress and LGBTQ advocate's confession. What do you think? I think that's oversharing, right? I don't see how anybody who works in media would think that they weren't going to experience an avalanche of response to that sort of disclosure, but look, you're welcome to disclose whatever you want, but just know that when you share stuff, people take liberty to respond. You share stuff on social media, don't be surprised when people respond. And so, there's some folks out there that will say, some people just talk too much. That's what Brother Andy is saying. So sometimes people just talk too much. I don't know what the objective of sharing that was, but Laverne Cox, you're welcome to join us here on A More Perfect Union anytime to share what may not be obvious to so many of us, who were a bit surprised with this disclosure. All right. And so, look, here on A More Perfect Union, we are about counsel culture, not cancel culture, right? So we ain't canceling anybody, because of who they're dating or not dating. But we do want to learn how that happened. Moving along in some exciting news, especially for folks that enjoy a little Ralph Lauren fashion. The Griot also reporting that Ralph Lauren's latest capsule collection pays tribute to Black summer style in Oak Bluffs. 3 years after Polo Ralph Lauren broke ground with a collection and collaboration with Spelman and Morehouse Colleges, the Legacy Fashion House has set its sight on the Vineyard on Thursday, tomorrow. In fact, Polo Ralph Lauren will release a new limited edition capsule collection honoring Oak Bluffs, the historic Black summer coastal enclave on the Massachusetts island of Martha's Vineyard, long known as a summer vacation spot for Black elites. Well, the line will be available globally on ralphlauren.com, and it blends the signature regal Ralph Lauren preppy aesthetic with the cultural richness of the Black nautical town. And so I'm looking forward to seeing it, and you might as well. And so be sure to check it out. When we come forward, I'm looking forward to being in conversation with Bishop Tolton, Bishop Joseph W. Tolton. He is quite a force. This is somebody who is a former advisor to the U.S. State Department's Office of Religion and Global Affairs. He is also founder of Interconnected Justice. It's a Pan-African advocacy organization that's building a policy blueprint to counter the Christian nationalist agenda globally. When I first learned about his work, I had to meet him. And I think you want to meet him too. Bishop Joseph joins us when we come forward. You're listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hey, Mom, I've been meaning to talk to you about some new COVID information I saw online. I read that Black folks like us with certain conditions like diabetes, heart disease, mental health conditions, or being 50 and older like you, are at high risk.
Boy, you sound like a commercial.
I'm just saying. I know you love your ginger teas and essential oils, but remember, there are treatment options for COVID-19.
I promise if I get sick again, I'll call my doctor to ask about my options.
Visit WeTalkWeRise.com to learn more. Brought to you by Pfizer.
When it comes to back-to-school shopping at Target, you can choose not to choose. From getting what you need to expressing who you are. With prices that make every choice feel right, why not choose all of the above? From backpacks, bedazzled kicks, and Picture Day Perfect styles as bold as they are. For bring your own lunch days to science project partner days, snack stash days, decorate your locker days, and paint outside the line days. All at prices that will definitely make your day. For all of the above, it's back to school at Target.
This is the story of the one. As a lineman, he does whatever it takes to keep the power on in his community. And he wants a partner like Grainger who does the same. Grainger offers the professional-grade products he needs, from voltage detectors to harnesses to hard hats, plus fast, dependable delivery, so he can rise to every challenge. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Oh no, stomach issues again?
Stomach issues?
Who are you?
Your pancreas. I could be the real reason for your diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose oily stools.
I thought it was my stomach.
People often do, but any of these symptoms could mean having a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and speak with your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. If you need help getting your resume in order, finding job training, or landing a job, we've got 3 great options for you. First, the City of Los Angeles has WorkSource centers across the area offering free job support. The California Workforce Development Board can help you with everything from GED prep to vocational training at no cost to you. On the federal level, the Department of Labor's American Job Centers offer a full range of services for job seekers and businesses alike. Visit careeronestop.org, or for more info, just call California's Help Center or visit cwdb.ca.gov or call 916-657-1440. For the City of Los Angeles programs, go to ewd.lacity.gov or call 213-744-7300. All these services are free to help you get your next job. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
We have no permanent friends or permanent enemies. Only permanent interests. As we effort to build a more perfect union.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Corte, and really honored to welcome to the show Bishop Joseph W. Tolton. For those who may be less familiar, Bishop Tolton has quite the resume. He's a former advisor to the U.S. State Department's Office of Religion and Global Affairs. And these days, he's founder of Interconnected Justice. It's a Pan-African advocacy organization that's building a policy blueprint to counter the Christian nationalist agenda globally. Welcome to the show, Bishop Joseph.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nee. It's such a pleasure to be with you. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's such a pleasure to have you. And so let's set the table for our leaders, learners, and listeners that may be a little less familiar with the growing movement around Christian nationalism. Define what it is, offer us an example of Christian nationalism in the public square where we may not think of it that way, but that is indeed what it is.
Absolutely. At its most perverse and insidious, Christian nationalism believes that Christians and Christian theology should come to have full dominion over all of the levers of society that inform and produce and generates a society's culture, a society's economy, and its overarching political direction. This wing of the conservative religious world is in fact called dominionism. the 7 mountains of society that they believe that Christians should dominate are law, media and entertainment, family, education, healthcare, and the government. And they deeply believe that Christians ought to be actually literally ruling over these distinct 7 mountains in order to drive the kingdom of God literally being established here on the earth. So one example of Christian nationalism that's in the news at the moment, of course, is what's happening with the late night a host that was just fired. This is really about a movement that wants to confine and dictate the manner in which we're able to speak even via the portals of entertainment. They understand exactly how influential the world of entertainment can be to shaping policy and culture and economics. This confining, this shutting down, this threatening of, that comes directly from a dominionist playbook. That is white Christian nationalism on steroids.
I really appreciate you putting a finer point on that. A lot of us are still reeling from the announcement that CBS Paramount is not just getting rid of Late Night with Steve Colbert. They're getting rid of the whole franchise. I mean, we're talking about the Late Show that has been there for decades. They are completely divesting from that. I recently saw a post that Senator Elizabeth Warren had put up where it was a TikTok. She walked us through the timeline by which, Steve Colbert, had made a comment about CBS Paramount essentially capitulating to Trump. And just days later, CBS Paramount announces because of financial reasons, that they are ending the Late Show with Steve Colbert. We've also seen a number of other networks bend the knee, as they say, bend the knee to President Trump and the Trump administration. ABC News has settled a case with President Trump, providing $16 million to his presidential library. We know that CBS is currently in litigation with President Trump, where they may meet the same fate. We're seeing this move again and again and again. Why are these powerful networks capitulating? Why are they bending the knee? Why aren't they leaning into a different play in response to the Trump administration and the MAGA movement? What's your guess?
It's been really interesting to watch this, particularly as someone whose secular career has been in the area of marketing for many years. In which case, I think many brands and the marketing world at large, to some degree, was able to convince particularly minority consumers that they were actually in the business of corporate social responsibility, and that they understood that there was a revenue bump that they would gain if they would participate in targeted marketing. The fact is that there was a moment in time, perhaps, in which they were vested in that strategy because it was a moneymaker for them. But at the end of the day, the king of the firm is profit. Besides my study in religion, I have an MBA, and I will never forget the day that I sat in my introductory economics class, and my professor Willard made that statement that the king of the firm is profit. And that is exactly what is driving this. The firm is not mitigated by its heart for people. The firm is not mitigated by its impetus to perhaps participate as a good corporate social citizen. Seeing the change in the horizon politically, you see corporations essentially following their deepest instinct, which is that of absolute greed. I think it's coupled by the fact that we live in the wake of Citizens United, where corporations understand now that they can pour unlimited dark money into campaigns, which gives them another lever of being able to drive a particular political agenda and be associated with particular candidates and actually be able to wash their fingerprints of that particular association.
We are, well, while we've been on air, the Associated Press reporting that the appeals court finding Trump's efforts to end birthright citizenship unconstitutional. They are upholding a block. Again, the Associated Press is reporting that federal appeals court ruled today that President Trump's order seeking to end birthright citizenship is unconstitutional, affirming a lower court decision that blocked its enforcement nationwide. The ruling from the 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, it comes after a push, was also blocked by a federal judge in New Hampshire and puts the issue one step closer to quickly becoming back before the U.S. Supreme Court. Bishop, talk to us about President Trump's quest to end birthright citizenship and how, if he's successful, how that might supercharge this Christian nationalist movement that is quickly changing the legal landscape for so many of us across the country.
When you consider the historicity of people of African descent in this country, we were considered to be 3/5 of a human being. We had to jump the broom because we didn't have the capacity to actually love. So therefore, there was no necessity for us to participate in what would be a valid marriage. The dehumanization of Black people has been a cornerstone of the founding of this country and, in particular, our economic gain. The economics of this country and the idea that this country is the richest country on earth is built on the backs of slaves. We have to revisit the fact that the Industrial Revolution was ignited by the fact that there were more precise ways of exacting torture on Black bodies, which led to the overproduction of cotton picking. That cotton was then sold to Europe. That cotton was then turned into clothing. They bought it at a discounted rate because Americans weren't paying labor costs. And that was the cycle that started the Industrial Revolution. It was built on the backs of slaves. It is absolutely true that Jeffersonian democracy did not realize itself until Selma, when we had the right to vote, and on many levels, our full humanity, our full capacity to participate in the political process was actually established and sanctioned. The dehumanization and the discrediting of the humanity and the citizenship of people of African descent and the dismantling of the 14th Amendment is critical to the mission of white Christian nationalism, which must reestablish whiteness as the only social ideal that anyone would want to aspire to in order to be considered a viable American. So this idea of taking away birthright citizenship is deeply connected to the fact that it was put into place to, in fact, confer citizenship and full humanity on African Americans. This is a part of the white Christian nationalist playbook. If you want to undo the democracy that we live in, you've got to go back to the place where we became a democracy, and that was at Selma. If you are going to have a road to authoritarianism, you have got to blow up the political identity and the political strength of Black people. And what happened with the 14th Amendment and the establishment of birthright citizenship is core to that proposition.
You know, in other words, President Trump, the Trump administration, the MAGA movement, the Christian nationalist movement, they are playing for keeps. You know, earlier today, Bishop, I was visiting with my barber, Tone, and you know, one of the things that one of the observations I was sharing with him is that I think part of what we're witnessing right now is a void of imagination. dare I say, radical imagination.
Yes.
It seems to me, and I'm curious as to what your take is on this. It seems to me that Project 2025, for example, that Project Esther,
yes,
for example, that they represent the radical imagination of the MAGA movement, of the Christian nationalist movement, for folks who lean into white replacement theory, for people who very much believe in and practice white supremacy, right? This moment in time that we are all living in is an extension of some of the radical imagination that they have honed in recent years, in recent decades, with the support of the Koch brothers, with the support of philanthropists like Mr. Adelson, with the support of the Heritage Foundation, among others. And so when we come forward, I'm curious as to whether or not you share that critique. And if you don't, that's okay. I want to hear where your critique might be different, and how you're working through this movement to counter the Christian nationalist agenda, how you are working to hone some radical imagination in the process. You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. More with Bishop Joseph Tolton when we come forward.
The audience is listening, thought-provoking, eye-opening, heart-rendering. This is where authentic voices meet powerful discussions on culture, community, and change. This is where Black voices matter. He's breaking boundaries, amplifying diverse perspectives, and tackling the issues that matter most to you. You're inside A More Perfect Union with Dr. Nii-Quartelai on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Tammy Eswick with BIN News Now. We're following breaking news out of Lorain, Ohio. 3 cops were shot. 2 of them are in critical condition. We're gathering more information from officers, but what we do know is that the suspect in this case was shot and killed, according to 19 News. It happened around 1 o'clock this afternoon. Multiple agencies are on scene, as well as the U.S. Marshals. 19 News says sources told them they aren't looking for any other suspects at this time.
This was an ambush situation. This is a difficult day for the Lorain Police Department and the law enforcement community.
Extreme heat is taking over parts of the U.S. this week. One doctor reminding people don't skip the water. It could lead to heat exhaustion if you do. And Black Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson is cracking down on smoking on trains and buses. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Let's start off in Chino Hills. A lot of cleanup going on along the 71. That is a full freeway closure. Both directions of the 71 remain off limits. Between the 91 freeway and Butterfield Ranch Road, Euclid, this is due to a brush fire. But Caltrans is out there right now, along with some firefighters still, and they're just trying to get the roadway reopened, at least that left lane for both directions. But at this time, we're still looking at a closed freeway. Now, we're also looking at some problems. This is in Simi Valley. You got a stalled big rig on the 118 eastbound past Rocky Peak Road. Right lane is blocked. Delays away from Cooner Drive.
Every day a child in poverty waits for a sponsor is another day of hopelessness. There are thousands of kids who've been waiting over a year. End their wait. Sponsor a child with compassion today. Just text the word radio to 83393.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Chargers moved their training camp this week to San Diego for 3 days. The team is reconnecting with the fan base they left behind when they moved to LA in 2017. The Chargers are working out at the University of San Diego, where Coach Jim Harbaugh started his coaching career in 2004. Wednesday morning, the Chargers did a walkthrough practice aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln, a Navy aircraft carrier that will stretch over 3 football fields. The Chargers returned to their El Segundo facility on Thursday. When the LA Sparks beat the Washington Mystics Tuesday in D.C., they won 3 in a row for the first time this season. The 9-14 Sparks are at the Connecticut Sun Thursday night. Former Duke All-American Nolan Smith is the new men's basketball coach at HBCU Tennessee State. Smith replaces Brian Collins, who left to become an assistant coach with the NBA Memphis Grizzlies. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we're proud to be celebrating 4 years on the air, but we know we could not have made it this far without you. We work hard every single day to curate conversations that will enlighten, encourage, and empower you. So, from all of us at KBLA Talk 1580, a big thank you for your love and support.
You don't know how much you mean to me.
And by the way, if your smartphone did not update automatically, be sure to download our brand new KBLA 1580 app. We think you'll love all the new features, including new ways to send us photos and video in real time. Whenever news breaks, while we're on the air, it's a new dawn, a new day for KBLA Talk 1580. And we're glad you're on this journey with us.
You never turned away, you were right there. Thank you, thank you.
Attorney advertising. Prior results do not guarantee future outcomes.
Founded in Los Angeles in 1986, litigation powerhouse Quinn Emanuel has deep roots in the Los Angeles community. Since 2007, we have litigated some of the largest fires on the West Coast. We are proud to be the only AmLaw 100 firm in the country to represent wildfire victims, giving affected individuals, families, and businesses the same focus and individualized attention we devote to our Fortune 500 clients. BTI Consulting has repeatedly recognized Quinn Emanuel as among the 4 law firms in-house counsel least like to oppose in any litigation, and we are often deemed the most feared. And after securing over $80 billion for our clients in various matters firm-wide, we understand why. If you have been affected by the recent wildfires in Altadena and the Palisades and would like to discuss your situation further, please contact wildfire support at QuinnEmanuel.com or call us at 213-443-3050. Quinn Emanuel is proud to sponsor Conversation Live Altadena Rising with James Farr on KBLA Talk 1580.
Attorney advertising. Prior results do not guarantee future outcomes.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio that's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Hit me!
National news of consequence, informed opinion, and analysis beyond the headlines. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai, and really enjoying this conversation with Bishop Joseph W. Tolton. For those who are less familiar, he's a former advisor to the U.S. State Department's Office of Religion and Global Affairs. He is also the founder of Interconnected Justice. It's a Pan-African advocacy organization that's building a policy blueprint to counter the Christian nationalist agenda globally. Boy, do we need it. Bishop Joseph, before the break, I was offering my take and my observation in terms of the radical imagination that we don't see nearly enough of in opposition to the MAGA agenda, in opposition to the Christian nationalist agenda. Do you see it the same way or a little bit different?
Dr. Nee, in the 1400s, the Pope Nicholas, issued a decree to the King of Portugal, who was King Alfonso. In this decree, he strongly asserted that the king had the right to seek out, vanquish, and to conquer all of those who were considered non-Christians, and that God had given him the right to politically and economically have dominion over these people who were not Christians. It is really important for us to understand that this set off the doctrine of discovery, which set off the transatlantic slave trade. Project 2025 is nothing but a modern day articulation of the doctrine of discovery. So I would actually suggest that there's nothing particularly imaginative about the MAGA strategy. In fact, it's old and it's very corrupt. Where I would agree with you is that the execution of this strategy is wild, and one could describe that wildness as being somewhat imaginative. But I think it's also important for us to also be clear that it is afraid and that it is desperate. But to the heart of the beep clause of your question, we have not yet seen that kind of imaginative thinking coming from the left. And I think to some degree it is because the entity that would most naturally stand up in this moment to counter white Christian nationalism is the Black church at large. Now, the Black church is not monolithic, and it's certainly very, very diverse. But in terms of the Black church and its heart and soul around social justice, what we have seen since the civil rights movement is the development of the prosperity gospel. The prosperity gospel, I think, on many levels has really helped to dissipate the social imperative that has always driven the Black church. That was certainly happening in the in the 1990s and into the early 2000s. Then when we move into the time of President Barack Obama, the civil rights issue of the day was LGBTQ concerns, and marriage equality was the issue of the day. The Black church at large could not find its footing around this issue. And I think ever since then, the Black church has struggled to maintain its position as not only the conscious voice of the nation, but also the consciousness of the Democratic Party. And so now we're in a moment where we need the Black church to stand up, and it is not yet emerging or rising, in part because it likes what it sees in much of white Christian nationalism, at least in terms of mega churches and televangelism, etc. Theologically, the church also fumbles with matters of reproductive justice and certainly LGBTQ rights. So I think that there's an opening and a void, and we're waiting for an entity to emerge. I deeply believe that in terms of organizing, it is time for queer people of faith who have an international perspective to stand up, because coming out of the marriage equality movement and even coming out of the LGBTQ movement more historically, it was African Americans who participated in the civil rights movement who brought that energy into the queer movement. And I think now that there is a base of people of faith who are queer, who really are committed to matters of social justice, that once again, it is a remnant that will emerge, that will really have the prophetic imagination to build transatlantic bridges and to create a global Black internationalist third civil rights movement that will kiss a third Pentecost.
Woo! You look, I can see why so many people have been telling me you got to talk to Bishop Tolton about the movement to counter Christian nationalist agenda. You are very well steeped in the historical context in which this movement is so terribly needed. Listen, recently, there were a number of African leaders that were at the White House meeting with President Trump. I had the opportunity to be in the room as a part of the press corps, and I heard some things, as I'm sure you and so many others heard some things that were hard to hear. We'll put it that way. You are quoted in the Griot calling out Trump's Africa summit and white supremacist bias. You said, quotes, he approaches Africa from that bias and with that perception that these are kind of barbaric, uncivilized leaders and nations. Tell me what you meant by that.
Let's go to the Washington Accord. This is an agreement that Trump has facilitated between Rwanda and the Congo. Yes, there's been a 30-year conflict that certainly needs to be addressed. But I think it's really important for us to be very, very clear. He is using this conflict because he desperately wants a Nobel Peace Prize. But ultimately, beyond the veneer of the fact that there will be refugee resettlement in the Eastern Horn of the Congo, yes, there will be a disengagement regarding the military conflict. And yes, to some degree, there'll be regional integration with regard to the ways in which some of the countries in East Africa participate in the mining of minerals. But more importantly, now American corporations will have full access to the cobalt and the diamond and the gold that is under the ground in the Congo. In fact, the head of Blackwater, as well as one of Trump's other major contributors, already have the rights to secure the mines that were being secured by M23 rebels and unfettered access to other mineral extraction possibilities. So I lift that up as an example in an answer to your question, in which he presents himself in a particular way, but underneath that veneer, let's be very clear. He has an opportunistic perspective as it relates to Africa. He believes that he can manipulate African leaders. He can connect with them around their strongman sensibilities, all for the purposes of driving economic domination as it relates to the continent.
What did you think of how the African leaders from Senegal, from Liberia, among some of the other countries that were there, did they hold their own? Were they in a precarious situation in the first place by showing up at the Trump White House? Did they get what they need in order to at least live to fight another day?
I think that they did extremely well in terms of how they were able to comport themselves. Africa at large is really trying to figure out what is the best strategy in dealing with Trump and his maneuverings. I think that a part of what is unfortunate is that what Trump is doing is he's speaking to the transactional nature of politics, which for many African leaders has a particular appeal. And so the needs of African people are now being sidelined. Again, if I go back to this deal in the Eastern Horn of Africa, there's no mention of human rights. There's no mention of the ways in which the Congolese people are now going to have access to the minerals in their own country to build a mass middle class. So I think that African leaders, one by one, are trying to figure out what is the right dance. My concern is that we don't have enough African leaders like Ramaphosa who actually not only have a backbone, but who are driven by principle and not just the possibilities of profit personally.
We know that another question I had posed to the president is related to the IRS. The IRS says that churches can now endorse political candidates, as reported by NPR. In a break with decades of tradition, the IRS says it will allow houses of worship to endorse candidates for political office without losing their tax-exempt status. There's, of course, some implication for this stateside, but the way I see it, there are also implications globally. Talk to us about any reticence that you have or any suspicions that you have about this recent decision by the IRS.
Again, this is right out of the Dominionist playbook. They have been itching for this change for many, many years. Their pulpits in many occasions and in many contexts are nothing more than political conventions. And so now that this line has not just been blurred, but obliterated, they can really come out of the closet in that for many on the far right, religion is really not about receiving the grace of God, but it is about driving an incredibly narrow political agenda that is undergirded by religious fervor, but not by Christian values. I am not only suspicious of this move, but I absolutely condemn it. It is transparently clear that this is about Trump wanting to give his base another opportunity to rile up, mobilize, drive, and in some cases expand the political operation of conservative religious churches.
I want to remind our leaders, learners, and listeners that since 1954, a provision in the tax code called the Johnson Amendment says that churches and other nonprofit orgs could lose their tax-exempt status if they participate in or intervene in any political campaign on behalf of any candidate for public office. And so clearly, this recent decision by the IRS flies in the face of what has been a provision in the tax code for nearly 70 years.
There's no question that that is the case. This reminds me of the Bob Jones University case, in which the Supreme Court said you will lose your tax exempt status if you continue to operate using such racist policies. That's what actually set off the modern day religious right movement, the moral majority movement. It wasn't Roe v. Wade. They've hidden behind Roe v. Wade as their rallying cry. But the incentive to reorganize the religious right after the civil rights movement kind of theologically disorganized Confederate Christianity, that decision came from this idea that the races were going to be mixing. So this relationship between tax status, this relationship between the unrestricted use of money and funds is something that has always been precious and sensitive for the religious right. We saw it in the 1980s with that case with Bob Jones University, which was so historic and so important. And now we're seeing it again. This is not a U.S. Supreme Court decision, but a decision by the IRS, which I think we will live to regret.
When we come forward, I'm going to ask Bishop Joseph Tolton to stay with me just a little while longer. It's time for the quiet part out loud, and I certainly want us to learn a little bit more about Interconnected Justice, the organization that he founded. In addition, NBC News is reporting that Texas flood survivors offer a mixed review of FEMA as the agency awaits an uncertain future. What happened to Love Thy Neighbor? We're going to get Bishop's take on this story and more when we come forward. You're listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
Striving to make America a nation as good as its promise. This is A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
You have cancer. The 3 words no one wants to hear. Of the cancers that impact our community, lung cancer is the most dangerous. More people succumb to lung cancer than colon, breast, and prostate combined. Black men are 12% more likely to develop lung cancer, and cases for Black women are rising. Early detection and comprehensive treatment is the best way to beat this dreaded disease. Providence is a research leader in multi-cancer early detection, offering blood tests that identify fast-spreading cancers that don't show symptoms in early stages. The Providence Los Angeles Integrated Network Cancer Program determines best protocols for each patient, interacting with specialists who share experiences, perspectives, and new findings specific to each case. With over 1,000 board-certified physicians, including top oncologists, surgeons, radiologists, and nurse specialists, Providence delivers whole-person care that understands your culture, values, preferences, and priorities. So, if you hear the words, "you have cancer," all you need is faith and providence.org/cancer.
When you're hiring, have you ever felt like you're missing out on meeting truly great candidates for your roles? It seems impossible to find them, but they have to be out there somewhere, right? Well, they're not hard to find when you know where to go, and that place is ZipRecruiter. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter helps 10 million people with their job search every day. And because these people are actively looking for jobs just like yours, it's easy to find the right person right away. In fact, 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. But if you're not using ZipRecruiter, you're missing out. So see what it's like when the impossible is easy. When you go to ZipRecruiter.com/free right now to try ZipRecruiter for free. Once again, that's ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter.com/free. Never miss out on great candidates with ZipRecruiter.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you, when we fight, we win. The Youth Justice Coalition is challenging America's addiction to incarceration and discrimination. YJC works to dismantle policies leading to mass incarceration, law enforcement violence, and the school-to-prison pipeline. Their approach? Transformative justice, community intervention, free LA high school, legal defense, and system monitoring. YJC promotes safety without relying on prisons. Their goal? prevent system contact, and help people exit the system through direct action, advocacy, and education. Want to get involved or need help? Call 323-235-4243. That's 323-235-4243. Join YJC in creating change. When we fight, we win. KBLA Talk 1580, your voice for justice. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Notable journalists, industry leaders, lawmakers, change makers, tastemakers, and you working to build a more perfect union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. The conversation is so good, I couldn't let him go. Bishop Joseph W. Tolton, the founder of Interconnected Justice, is here with us. He and so many of his colleagues are leading a movement to counter Christian nationalist agenda. I want you to square this for me, Bishop. NBC News reporting that Texas flood survivors are offering mixed reviews of FEMA as the agency itself is awaiting a pretty uncertain future. The response that the folks in Texas at least have had has ranged from fantastic to unhelpful and frustrating. Help me understand, how is it that, the current president, the current administration, seems to be the flavor of the year, really, for Christian nationalists. They don't seem to be critiquing this president or this White House in any sort of way. How is it that having an agency that is intended to support people in times of emergency, that is intended to do the work of loving thy neighbor, right? How is it that this administration can get away with that agency failing at its job and, Christian leaders and Christian nationalists looking the other way?
One of the core principles or ideas in Project 2025, which I think were somewhat underreported, is this notion that the state should be gutted of its duty and capacity to create a safety net and to establish and implement programs that would take care of the poor or that would help in emergency situations. The idea is that these necessities would be privatized. So this ultimately is about creating more economic opportunities for unregulated corporations to make just a ridiculous amount of money. So this idea of privatization is so very key to the dismantling of the state. I think it's also important for us to understand that what they propose is that the safety net should in fact be implemented by the church. Now, if the church is going to provide the services that SNAP provided or the food bank provided or that FEMA provided, that means that you're going to have to enter that spiritual space or be exposed to it to receive its services. You will then have to some degree, feel as if you have to adhere to the dogma and doctrine of that church. Now, let's go back to the IRS decision and your question about FEMA. If I have to now deal with a church that's doing what FEMA did, and that church has all the legal ability in the world to beat me over the head, not only with their conservative theology, but also with a particular political ideology, you can now see how these things actually really do come together. It is empowering corporate America and it is empowering the church, because both are vehicles to push forward a particular ideology that ultimately is all about making money and controlling and dominating the voice and the thinking of citizens.
Bishop Tolton, in our remaining minutes, I want to give you an opportunity to talk about some of the work that you are leading with Interconnected Justice. For people who are less familiar, it is a Pan-African advocacy organization that is laser focused on building a policy blueprint to counter the Christian nationalist agenda. So if you're out there and you're saying, okay, wait a minute, where's the opposition's Project 2025? Where's the opposition's Project Esther, right? Well, that is a part of what Bishop Tolton and others are working on. Talk to us about the Interconnected Justice Organization and how our leaders, learners, and listeners can tap in.
Absolutely. Interconnected Justice is a Pan-African network connecting people of African descent globally for collaborative action with regard to issues that are political, economic, and spiritual that we share in common. Our core program is called the Affirming Elders Council. And on December the 10th of last year, we had this wonderful moment in which we brought together clergy, civil society advocates, business leaders, and academics, as well as youth activists, LGBTQ activists, economic reform activists, particularly Gen Z folks like those in Kenya who are doing such important work, as well as womenist activists, into one ecosystem in which we, as people of African descent on the continent and in the diaspora, chose each other, chose to work together, chose to identify our common heritage and what we perceive to be our common destiny. It is so important that even before we get to the policy prescription, I believe that the organizing under the umbrella of Black internationalism is going to be key. I believe it is salvific as it relates to how we are going to press through this particular moment in time. The theopolitical antidote to white Christian nationalism for people of African descent is Black internationalism. We have to hold hands from Brazil to the United States, where we're dealing with matters of police brutality. In one country, it is the same as it is in the other. We have to make that one movement. We have to deal with matters of economic disenfranchisement that we see happening in our inner cities. It's deeply connected to what we see happening with regard to the extraction of minerals by Western countries in Africa. Black internationalism is the antidote to white Christian nationalism on a global level.
Our thanks to Bishop Joseph Tolton, who is the founder of Interconnected Justice. You might want to run over to that website and
icjustice.org. I'm sorry, the letter I, the letter C, justice.org. icjustice.org.
Absolutely, and we'll definitely have you back very, very, very soon. Thank you for all the great work that you're doing, and thanks to all of our leaders, learners, and listeners for tapping in. Our thanks to the Village helps us to produce a more perfect union each and every day. Our executive producer Tavis Smiley, our sound engineer Brother Andy, our show producers Faraji, Art, and Journey. And to each and every one of you, all of our leaders, learners, and listeners, we curate this show every day with you in mind. Remember, don't panic, organize. Do what you can from where you are with what you have. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Corte. You've been listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. Thank you, Bishop.
Thank you so kindly, my brother.